Today on Eat Like a Local, this might be one of the most excited I've been about an episode. We get to talk about Western African cuisine. I am not familiar with these dishes. I'm not familiar with the textures. I am not familiar with the recipes. It's something that I've always wanted to learn, and today we get to do a deep dive into it. We're at ChòpnBlọk, Lower Westheimer, right off of Whitney. I met Ope 4 or 5 years ago. He was doing pop-ups. We got to learn Nigerian food, culture, music, dance. He just brought everything Nigeria to us and said, this is who I am. And I was so inspired by this. Now he just opened up this new restaurant. So let's get in, let's talk with Ope, let's see what this is about. Ope, brand new ChòpnBlọk.
Brand new ChòpnBlọk.
I mean, you've had a place at the Post.
Yep, since 2021.
So I'd like to know what got you into this.
At the age of 2, my parents sent my brother and me to go stay with my grandmother in Nigeria while they came back to the States to figure out where it was that they wanted to settle. You know, my grandmother, my mom's mom, that was a really important person in my life, really just helping me to grow a super strong affinity for my culture. So when my parents settled on coming to Houston, they called for my brother and me, and from then on, I called Houston home, where I was in a Nigerian household, you know, super traditional, family values, cultural values. But then I'd often be in classroom environments where I'm the only black kid in the class. I think it really gave me kind of a very unique perspective. My first time really leaving the city of Houston, like on an extended stay, was when I went out to college. You know, it's hard for me to get access to like the food that I took for granted at home. After I finished grad school, I got a job. After a couple years in, I just had a desire, like, this wasn't it, right? There was something else I was being called to do. I ended up passing by this Italian street kitchen. It's actually Piata. And when I saw that, I was like, that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. I'm gonna go and build a contemporary West African-inspired food and beverage brand that ultimately helps me share the beauty of my culture with the world. And you know, those who are familiar with it, that come from the background that I come from, are gonna be able to have that access point. At the same time, those who aren't familiar with it are about to get this gateway to something that's gonna change their lives, right?
That's awesome.
I tell my family, they think it's a great idea, they just don't think it's for me. And so my wife was like, well, the reason you have this issue is because you don't know how to make the food. And I was like, aha, you're right. That's a good point, you know?
That's kind of key.
So I started thinking, you know, I know we're gonna move a lot of rice. Where can I go and work to get experience on how to build a business that moves a lot of rice?
Where'd you go?
Went to Chipotle. I'm working my corporate career in oil and gas in the daytime, and I'm punching in as a prep cook, dishwasher at nighttime at Chipotle.
What was your wife's thought about that?
Yeah, he's gonna fold. But the heroes of it all, because at the time I still didn't know how to make my own food.
Yeah.
Were the home cooks. I know in my culture, is whenever we have large celebrations, events, we don't often make the food ourselves. There's usually figures in our community, these home cooks, who are the ones that get those calls. To me, I felt like if I really wanted to learn how to make the food, that's who I need to go get with. So that when we do build something of value, it's super recognizable, it's not diluted. I want to take my own interpretation of each of these dishes. I'm thinking about the ways I eat them, right? And that's how the first dish that is on our menu, the trad, came to fruition, is whenever I'm home, I always want traditional Nigerian jollof rice with that smoky signature to it. I always eat it with plantains. I always eat it with chicken. And understanding the lineage between West African jollof rice and Southern jambalaya, and how jollof is the precursor. I made a jollof jambalaya as part of that dish.
What you're saying in that is it came from somewhere. Now you need to know where it came from.
Yep.
And I think that's very smart.
And then I figured the next thing to do is we run a bench scale pilot. And that's how I started doing these private dining experiences.
And that's when we met. And it was one of the greatest experiences for you to come out, not just to show food. You taught us food, language, culture, music, and I've just been infatuated with this ever since.
You know, for people with my background, from we understand it, what we're creating with ChòpnBlọk is not only focused on that community. It's literally focused on the neighborhoods where our physical brick and mortars are located, right? I want those communities to be able to tap in and be able to understand like some of the lineage behind some of the cuisine we're already familiar with. as well as just to gain access to, you know, this culture.
Just the thought process behind what you're doing is brilliant.
Make our culture more accessible
Yeah.
and build community along the way. That's why we exist and do what we do.
Let's talk about this beautiful restaurant, beautiful cocktails.
We call it the Calabash Colada.
It's a pina colada, but not.
We use some coconut milk on that. We also use Eru, which is like an African nutmeg.
That is delicious.
Yeah.
What we've got sitting on the table right now, some hand pies, right?
Yep.
Plantain chips.
We call this our chips and dip. And so it's plantain chips and Liberian greens. Greens are a very, very important component in West African cuisine, but specifically in Liberia. During the transatlantic slave trade, when some slaves were essentially set free, some of them were sent back on the slave ships. They take different crops with them, greens being a big part of that, which is this dish right here.
Okay.
It's Liberian collard greens and some kale mixed into it.
Gosh, bro. I'm gonna keep doing this while you talk about Polo Club, right?
You gotta get the Polo Club suya. We as West Africans feel very, very strongly about our suya. Every time that we're tasting suya, which is, you know, street skewers, there's always that reference back to home, like, is it as good as the one back at home?
Okay, so when you say suya, it is marinated beef.
Yep.
Right?
It could be other
anything.
proteins as well, but
Anything?
traditionally it's gonna be beef, right? You marinate it, and then the big component on it is that it has yaji spice. Yaji is a northern Nigerian spice blend. Peanuts and dried chilies. So you marinate your meat, grill it. This is something that you'll find on a lot of roadside stands. Everyone has their reference to it. For me, when I travel back to Nigeria, the first place I go to is the Polo Club.
Okay.
Because I feel like they have the best version of suya. I spent some time during the pandemic at the Polo Club learning how to make proper suya. But to make sure it has that right touch, we actually import our suya spice from the Polo Club.
And then this is...
So mini pies.
Okay.
So I got one meat and one veggie. But these pastries are very, very common back in West Africa. Traditionally beef, potatoes, carrots. That's kind of your filling in there. We season it.
quintessential like comfort food, right? That's exactly what this is. I want to get into mafe trad bowls. I got this new little limeade with pineapple.
The perfect drink to pair with this dish I'm about to tell you about, but
Okay.
that's our Gold Coast limeade. Do you know which country in West Africa?
The Gold Coast? No.
It's Ghana. This is our Black Star. Do you know which country is also called the Black Star? Ghana.
Ghana.
The reason we named it after Ghana is because of this rice.
Okay.
This rice is called wache. Wache is a very common rice dish. Usually it's rice, beans, pasta, which is like spaghetti, some sort of stew, all in one.
I love that it could be rice and spaghetti.
Rice and spaghetti, come on. This here though, we use that same rice that's traditionally found in the wache. Gets its color from this sorghum leaf that you see.
So this is sorghum leaf.
That's sorghum leaf, yeah.
Smoky.
We add it with some plantains in there. And then this curry sauce that we've paired with it is a yassa curry. Yassa is Senegal. And the key components in any yassa is Dijon mustard, lemon, and caramelized onions. Then you gotta get a bite of that Cameroon pepper shrimp. You're gonna get a little bit of kick of that, and that comes from the Cameroon pepper, which is like dried down habaneros.
So good.
Yeah, it all comes together. And then the sweetness with the plantains to balance it all out.
All right, let's move over here. Because this is
This is the OG. Yeah, right there. We call that our motherland curry. It's a West African honey bean coconut curry. That
is
smoked
that?
jollof jambalaya I was telling you about. You taste that smokiness? Yeah, we smoked that thing for like 6 to 8 hours. Got that grilled chicken thigh.
it's perfect. Is this your go-to?
This is my go-to.
Okay, let's talk about the go-to.
Yeah, so we actually traditionally pair this with white rice and beans, your plantains. We call it buka stew because this is like the authentic rendition of the childhood dish that we as Africans all grew up on, which is red stew. When you make it at home, you take shortcuts. But at the buka, the roadside canteen, they don't take shortcuts.
So Buka is the roadside canteen.
Buka is a roadside cafe, roadside canteen
Okay.
you see in West Africa. Usually some ladies post it up. She created this business serving the community. In this stew, instead of taking the shortcut, she's gonna use traditional palm oil. So we use palm oil in this. She's also gonna have native ingredients such as Eru, which is fermented locust beans. We have that in there. It adds like a pungent flavor into it, which I love. She has the entire cow in there, right? So in our version, we said, you know what? We're in Montrose now. Let's do a little short rib.
Yeah, there you go. It's outstanding. I mean, it just tastes like a braised beef stew that grabs a part of you.
Yeah, this is me. Bury me with this.
That's real good.
All right, so now this is a dish that's special to me. I call this Auntie Mawa's mafe. peanuts, ground nuts. It's very, very, prevalent. Everyone has some sort of a stew around it. Mafe is the Senegalese version of a peanut soup. A good friend of mine named Chef Ope Amosu. She's from the Ivory Coast. She wanted me to show her my entire menu. She tasted it. She gave me her feedback. And she said, but there's only one thing that's missing. I said, what's that? She said, my mafe. So she sat there with me. She taught me how to make Senegalese mafe. You get that nutty curry flavor from it.
When people think curry, they think of that strong curry spice, and this is not that. This is just delicious.
Very smooth.
Then there's one more thing I got to talk about. You did something here.
And I was like, all right, how can we create a dessert that really represents who we are? So it's a warm plantain bread, gin with creme anglaise. This is how you end a ChòpnBlọk dinner the right way.
Get ready. This is taking over the world. What to order at ChòpnBlọk? Polo Club Suya. Chips and dip, not exactly what you expect, but equally as delicious. The mini pies, the motherland curry, the Black Star, which is an ode to Ghana, and then the Auntie Mawa Mafe, which is a Senegalese-inspired dish. Up next, Ope is going to take us to one of his places when he wants to taste a little bit of home. Ope, we're here at Famous Princess Kitchen.
Yep, Famous Princess has established itself in our community as that's how you get a taste of home.
I mean, and this is West Little York and Queenston.
Which is really interesting because this is not where the core of our community has lived, but I mean, she kind of found her stronghold right here on this corner.
What are the things that are your go-tos here?
So she makes a stew called a shake stew. I think it's like a 101. I don't really know anyone else that creates that. Okay. I love her own creation on it. It's basically like a spicy, blended pepper, tomato-based sauce stew. You can eat that with rice, eat that with swallows. She's known for her swallows, what we call amala or abula. So you got to get some of that. It's kind of a version of fufu, but with plantains instead.
Now, fufu, is that just traditionally like taro, yuca?
In the most traditional sense, it's root vegetable.
Okay.
Root vegetable. A lot of times it's going to be yam, cassava as the main ones that we tend to see.
Cool.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, let's get it.
This plantain and spinach.
EFO. EFO.
EFO.
FO.
FO.
And then riro. R-I-R-O. It's 2 words.
FO riro. And that's this right here.
Yep. Spinach and peppers.
This is intriguingly good. But I also see where ChòpnBlọk, where it starts.
Because our versions always have my interpretation of it in, right?
Yeah.
It's really important for me to learn how to make this version first.
Yeah. Because to me, if you have these two sitting next to each other, this is your chips and dip.
It's chips and dip.
So it's literally the same dish, just reimagined a different thought process.
And my dad would happily have these two by himself, and that's dinner.
I get that.
But this is like classic style, you know? You gotta get the spice. You gotta be in this type of atmosphere. Wipe your forehead a little bit.
That's the best.
That's how we eat it back at home. So we would call this spinach soup.
There's no way this is soup. All right, we need to walk through this soup thing.
It's the accompaniment. It's gonna go with your rice, or it's gonna go with what we call your solids or your swallows. The swallows, you can dip it with it, or if you can put it with your spoon of rice, then it's soup.
Say there's 3 different types.
You got the leafy.
The leafy. So we got the leafy, and we got the soup.
Yeah.
And now we got the
draw.
The draw. And by draw, if you're an okra lover, this is a perfect thing. Pureed okra, or roughly cut up, which you're releasing a lot of the enzymes, and you get that okra draw.
You know, okra is native to the region.
Yeah, 100%.
This is what's called pounded yam.
Yeah.
If it's dehydrated powder, you call it poundo. No, this is pounded yam. You can tell from the texture.
Wow. Outstanding.
Oh, yeah. You got certain households that are grains, white rice, jollof rice, fried rice. And you got other households that are solids. That's what they're eating.
What was your house?
We're a rice house.
Rice house?
We're a rice house.
I mean, I can tell by ChòpnBlọk.
Yeah, right? We're a rice house. Whenever we go to functions, it's like, all right, we got to get the swallows now. Because we're not making it as much at home.
This abula.
Abula.
Yamala make out of yam, the real yam tuber. Then the soup inside it is bean soup. And we'll put some habanero, dry fish inside. Then the jute leaf is very good.
Okay.
It's medicinal.
What's the leaf?
Jute.
Jute leaf.
Jute? I mean, everything here is like a present. I love it. That's delicious.
All right, thank you.
So I feel like there's been like a resurgence behind this dish right here. So the jute's gonna have more of a bitter taste to it. The orangish part, that's the grounded down beans.
That's awesome.
And you got the red stew.
The red stew is ubiquitous, huh?
Yeah, it's classic. It's everywhere.
Oh, you get the habanero.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is the amala. The amala.
Amala?
This is the other swallow.
Okay.
So this is she used the yam tuber for this, where I said you can also use plantain.
She's doing her own.
Yeah, she's doing it from scratch. That's why people come out here.
And this is the medicinal green.
Yep, that's the jute leaf.
This melon seed, the agusi, that's delicious.
Red bell. The difference between this and this is mainly tomato based. Here you don't use tomatoes. Use your red bells, use your habaneros, your onions, garlic, cook everything down separately. You'll smoke your palm oil. Once your palm oil is smoked, you add some more red onions to kind of start flavoring, put the aromatics in there, and you combine the two. It's a Nigerian restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. She's taking you through the different flavors of the different tribes of that country alone.
Because I can see this in your food. So you got the chips and dip, you got the buka stew, you got the rice that you use. You know, next step is the swallow. Awesome. I think what you're doing and showing us all these flavors, these textures, and this style, is really a beautiful thing. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Blessings. Blessings.
Up next, we're gonna get to make fufu. Today we're going to learn to make fufu. We've enlisted a friend of mine, Kavachi. Her family owns the oldest Nigerian restaurant in the city, Safari, and she has written a book, The Art of Fufu. So there's no better person to learn this from.
So we're going to be shopping for fufu. Ingredients and soups and spices and seasonings, oh my. The reason why I really love Amazing Grace is that they are able to import a lot of traditional spices, seasonings, and keeping it very authentic.
Because this is what people grew up with.
Yes.
So explain to me what fufu is.
It's a staple household dish in West Africa.
It's in essence the Western African version of bread on the table, grab, dip, dunk,
Yes.
eat.
Fufu is what people call it here in America, but if you go back home, they'll say I want swallow because you swallow the fufu. There are so many different types of fufu. So we're gonna be making gari stovetop, but we're gonna be making yam the traditional way. I remember back in the 90s, we were always trying to look for something that was similar, that had that consistency of fufu. They were being very creative by using biscuit flour mix just to get that consistency. Now we're here. It's like we have yam flour, we have cassava flour, we have gari, we have all types of different flours. So this is a gari mix. This is a cassava. So we're gonna be making this on the stove, but we're gonna be definitely pounding away for the yam.
So you can do this, or you can do this.
But we're gonna be doing this.
Okay. I feel like I'm putting my work in today.
Oh, trust me, you're gonna be working out.
We're gonna head over to Sub-Zero Wolf and make fufu. They're gonna let us pound it out there.
We're gonna be making gari. Gari is the stovetop version. Water has to be boiling to the point where once we pour it in, we can quickly stir. Think of oatmeal. Yeah. A lot of times people prefer gari because it's easier to make. Try to make it a little bit smooth. Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
I'm gonna show you how to form it. Come on, yes, do it, yes. Then you pinch, and then you scoop.
We have yam. We're gonna make fufu with it.
Yes.
So basically just clean this up, right?
Yes. Peel it, and then cut it into some nice sizes for it to be boiled, because we're going to pound, well, you're going to be pounded.
So you say we, I don't think there's a royal we on here. I think it's me. What are we pounding it in? Is there a traditional name for this? Or is it looks like a mortar and pestle to me, but.
Yes, pretty much, but we just call it the pounder. Back in the day, people would eat fufu in the morning to sustain.
You gotta go all day?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so we're going in the pot?
Yes, we're going to pot. We'll see you soon.
All right, how we're gonna pound?
Yes. Okay, you said this was your strong arm, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. The yam is ready to go. Okay, go ahead, start smashing. I'm gonna add some water, okay? Good job. Now you see how it's formed into fufu? It all goes back to the texture. Do you like this texture?
Great texture. And as a vehicle.
To eating the soup?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, keep in mind, when we sit down to eat, swallow, you're not chewing. Let's chop fufu.
What do you mean by chopping?
I'm about to go eat.
Ah, okay. Do I bring the whole bowl?
Before you eat fufu, you have to wash your hands. We're gonna try a goosey soup.
Okay.
And we're going to try fisherman soup. So we have all of these beautiful fufus, and we're gonna figure out which one goes well with fisherman or the goosey soup.
But there's no preconceived notion of what's right or wrong. It's just preferential.
It's preference. Go.
But I don't chew it now, right?
You swallow it.
I can feel the spice and the heat. You know, I basically just put it in my mouth and swallow it. So. But with this, like, I want to be able to, I like gumbo, but not, right? That same kind of texture.
Mm-hmm. Try this.
Okay. Way different texture. It's a grainier texture. Not that that's
It's
better
a little bit
worse,
grit,
right?
yeah.
It's got the grit to it. The pounded version, totally different texture. Like that is about as smooth as it can get.
Every soup has its own texture profile as well as its own heat level.
So what all is in here anyway?
Oh, you have a goosey, that's goat, and then you also have beef, you have tripe, you have pomo.
What is pomo?
It's the cow skin.
That's awesome.
Okay, now right here, periwinkle, same thing. You have crab, you have shrimp, you have beef.
I like this combo, the fresh one and the seafood. Mm-hmm. But I also, I dig this
Okay.
with this.
So usually at the restaurant, it's this with this.
Nailed it.
I know, I was like, I didn't want to say anything. Because now you can say, oh, I've tried the yellow gari, I've tried the white gari, but I prefer the fresh yam fufu.
I do. Thanks for teaching me about this.
Thank you for chopping fufu.
I love it. What an exciting episode. I learned so much. I got new friends. I got new textures to work on. I got new flavors to understand. It's what it's all about. It's about sitting down at a table, experiencing something new for the first time. Learning gives you respect. When you respect it, you can learn to love it. Until next time, what's next?